If you're looking for a shortcut to being, well, deeply informed about how the world actually manages chaos, I think today is your day.
Yeah.
We've pulled together a collection of sources that are all sort of obsessed with structure. Everything from UN reports on digital government performance to the specific details of a 19th century invented language, and finally, the nuts and bolts of writing a legal demand letter.
And what sounds like this totally random stack of documents is actually a really focused exploration. We're looking at the architecture of clarity.
The architecture of clarity, I like that.
The whole mission of this deep dive is to show you how any complex system, whether it's global governance, a human language, or a legal claim, uses rigid, verifiable structure.
To do what exactly?
To reduce ambiguity, establish credibility, and ultimately deliver predictable outcomes.
So we're looking for the universal operating system here.
That's a great way to put it.
The underlying principles that make things work reliably. We're diving deep into three distinct areas. The architecture of digital governments, the ambitious failure of Volapük, and the absolutely critical first steps of framing a personal legal claim.
It's fascinating because the same principles apply whether you're talking about screening $1 billion of cargo at a customs checkpoint,
right,
or just ensuring that one sentence in a letter avoids a legal error. So let's start with the largest scale, which is this global ambition to digitize governance.
Okay. When you look at securing international trade and upgrading government services, the first challenge is always data.
Always.
It sounds dry, but if a government can't structurally manage the massive flows of data related to its citizens and its borders, the whole system just it grinds to a halt.
And, to try and put a quantifiable score on all this, the UN actually developed the E-Government Development Index, or EGDI.
EGDI, right.
And we bring this up because, well, it's not just that it exists, it's that it's this brilliant, holistic measure. It assesses how a government functions digitally by looking at three main components.
Let's just talk about the first one for a second, the Online Service Index, or OSI.
Okay.
This focuses on the actual availability and sophistication of digital services. What I found truly eye-opening in the sources is that the EGGDI score, it doesn't perfectly track with how rich a country is.
That is the crucial insight. You might expect only, wealthy nations to score high, but the data shows this surprising performance trend.
Which is what?
Countries that are categorized as low or lower middle income can still achieve high or even very high values in their online service index.
We're talking about 20 countries, right? Like Uzbekistan, the Republic of Moldova, India, and African nations like Rwanda, Uganda, and Tanzania.
Exactly.
That are performing exceptionally well in digital service delivery. They don't have these enormous national treasuries, yet they're leapfrogging the traditional development path. Why?
Because they skipped the old clunky models. They went straight to adopting structural strategies that are inherently more agile.
So they're treating e-government as a platform.
As a platform, yeah. And focusing on multi-channel delivery, meaning it works seamlessly online and offline. And they're using agile development. It's about architectural efficiency, not just raw money.
And central to that efficiency is this data-centric approach. They're redefining data not just as static information, but as a dynamic asset.
Precisely. Data is leveraged in a structural way to constantly provide, evaluate, and then modify services for citizens. And what's more, the leading countries, 11 of them, have already put specific national strategies in place for things like AI, deep machine learning, and blockchain to manage their platforms.
They're building a kind of future-proof scaffolding.
That's it.
Okay, now let's take that challenge of structural data management and pivot it directly to securing trade.
Right. The World Customs Organization, or WCO.
Their whole goal is security without slowing down the global supply chain.
And this is where the lack of structure costs real money and causes real risk. A WCO study highlights a massive data gap in how commercial fraud is reported.
A data gap.
A huge one. In 2021, over 4,000 seizures were reported globally for tax and duty evasion in their database.
4,000? That sounds like a lot of activity is being monitored.
It is, but here's the problem. Here's the flaw in the underlying structure. The nature and type of that fraud were only indicated in 584 of those cases.
Wait, only 584 out of 4,000?
Yeah, so it means customs administrations know fraud is rampant, but they are critically deficient in providing the necessary descriptive data to, categorize and track the specific trends of the criminals.
So if your data is sloppy, your response is going to be sloppy too.
Exactly, which is why the WCO is so focused on IT solutions, implementing these sophisticated classifier algorithms to mitigate risk based on the minimal data they do get.
And constantly having to change procedures to compensate for that ambiguity.
And this leads us to probably the most vital infrastructural concept emerging right now in trade screening technology: open architecture, or OA.
Okay, open architecture sounds like a buzzword. How does it fundamentally change things on the ground?
It's revolutionary because it lets hardware, software, algorithms from 20 different suppliers, a camera here, a sensor there, an AI algorithm from a third party, to be seamlessly plugged together
Into one integrated solution.
Right, so you can upgrade components without replacing the entire system. It increases flexibility exponentially.
Okay, that sounds incredibly efficient on one hand.
It is.
But on the other, wildly precarious. If the whole thing fails, how do you even begin to track down who's liable?
That's the question.
It sounds like a complete nightmare of just finger pointing.
That is the core structural dilemma that OA introduces, and it demands the sharpest principle of clarity we've discussed yet.
A single point of responsibility.
A single point. The model requires one designated entity, they call it the integrator, to assume the full liability for guaranteeing the performance, the compliance, and the structural integrity of all applications on that platform for the system's entire lifetime.
The entire lifetime. So to allow for maximum flexibility in the system, you have to impose absolute singular accountability at the top.
That's it.
The more variables you add, the more rigid that liability structure must become. That's a phenomenal insight into managing complexity.
It really is. If you want seamless operation, you have to have the single source guarantee.
Let's carry that exact concept, this pursuit of a single, non-ambiguous entity, and apply it to a completely different realm: language.
Yeah.
We're moving from global supply chain technology to the ultimate attempt at linguistic clarity. Volapük, the language of the world.
Volapük.
Yeah.
Invented in the 1880s by Johann Martin Schleyer. He was driven by this belief that he could design a language that was just better than any natural language by removing all ambiguity and all confusing acceptances.
So if the OA integrator strives for a single point of system performance,
Then Volapük was striving for a single point of meaning for every single expression.
and the sources detail its core advertised qualities, which were, entirely structural. First, it avoids all the puzzling rules common in living and ancient languages. Second, it's brief, it saves words, which, as we just discussed with the WCO, is crucial for efficiency.
Especially for telegraphy at the time, yeah.
And third, and this is the most important part, it promised to be clear, plain, and distinct.
Because each expression was designed to have only one meaning. The grand ambition was that, literally, no mistakes can be made. It was a language built on a kind of mathematical certainty.
How did they enforce that clarity through the structure? Can you give us some concrete examples of its hyperstructured grammar?
Well, the conjugation is almost machine-like. If you look at English, we have dozens of irregular verbs, complex tense formations.
Right, ran or swam. It's my mess.
A total mess. In Volapük, the tense is simply prefixed to the word root. It eliminates all the guesswork.
So you just add a letter to the front.
That's it. You use a for the imperfect or simple past. So aphinoze means thou finishest. Use e for the perfect tense, as in igitum, he is God.
And O for the future.
O for future. E and U for the pluperfect and future perfect. The structure is fixed, it's rigid, and it's completely predictable.
It's the ultimate anti-ambiguity system. Even the vocabulary reflects this. You mentioned compound words that build meaning logically,
Like glitazone for main profit or kligaton for to make war. Every single root, prefix, and suffix serves one non-ambiguous function.
So it's this perfect philosophical blueprint for the concept we're tracking.
It is. Even though it ultimately faded, people found it too rigid, the very thing that promised clarity made it unwieldy. It still demonstrates this human desire to impose structural rigidity to eliminate failure.
Which brings us right back to the real world, because legal systems also demand that kind of structural clarity, a lot like a constructed language. So we're now moving to the critical first step in making a personal legal claim, creating the structural framework that establishes your credibility.
Right. And in a personal injury or breach of contract case, that initial framework is the demand letter.
The demand letter.
You should think of this document as your personal Volapük. It holds immense significance because it immediately sets the tone and establishes your credibility with the other party, usually an insurance company.
So if the language is messy or emotional or ambiguous, you've already undermined your own structural credibility from the start.
Precisely. The letter has to be factual, verifiable, and strictly objective. The minute you allow emotion or feelings into the claim, you violate the structural requirement of the legal system.
And you invite them to treat your case as subjective, not based on concrete facts.
Exactly.
So if we use the lessons from experienced attorneys, what does that necessary structural framework actually look like?
Well, you start with the basics, date and address. But importantly, you always specify the delivery method. And the advice from the sources is key. Always send a copy by email for speed and for record keeping.
Get the clock started.
Get the clock started. Then the title needs to be concise and free of drama. It should impose structure on the chaotic event, something like breach of the contract or demand for reimbursement.
Not, you won't believe what happened.
Definitely not. You follow that immediately with a factual background. This is the core engine of your letter. This section has to systematically explain what happened with the problem.
Standard of care or the contract terms.
Right. And what failed to be delivered? The breach. The goal is pure, verifiable knowledge arranged chronologically.
If we look at cases that often turn into litigation, say medical malpractice, the claim itself often centers on a structural failure in the process.
That's a great connection back to the EGDI's data focus. A common type of malpractice claim is failure to treat or premature discharge. The claim doesn't focus on the illness itself,
but on the structural failure of the provider.
Yes, it happens when providers downplay clear warning signs or, say, fail to arrange proper follow-up care. They have a legal duty to treat patients according to the accepted standard of care. The failure is the structural deviation from that duty.
A deviation which is often documented, or importantly, undocumented in the patient's records.
Exactly. Your demand letter has to highlight that documented structural failure.
That rigid, verifiable structure is what matters. Okay, so if that clearly structured claim moves toward litigation, we can use the New Mexico process as an example, the legal system imposes even more layers of structure. The first stage is discovery.
And discovery is designed to eliminate surprises. It's disclosure between both sides. It's the process where the facts, as you outline them in your demand letter, are formally tested and verified.
So this involves things like depositions, written questions,
written interrogatories, requests for document production, so getting all the medical records and doctor's notes, and sometimes physical or mental exams.
And if the dispute still can't be resolved, it heads to a trial before a trier of fact, a judge, or a jury. And even the process for ensuring the jury is impartial relies on structure.
Absolutely. The voir dire procedure is a structured, systematic questioning process used to select the jury by probing potential members for biases. The system demands that the people assessing the facts must also adhere to a structural mandate of impartiality.
And finally, because the structural integrity of your claim depends so heavily on how it's presented, choosing the right advocate is paramount.
It's the final structural decision you make. You have to interview them. Don't be afraid to ask about their experience, specifically their success in similar cases, the estimated duration, and the cost structure. They are your integrator.
Your integrator. And you need to ensure their communication methods adapt to fit your needs. You should demand clarity from them, just as your letter demands clarity from the defendant.
Constant structured communication is essential.
So, when we step back, what does this all mean? We've covered everything from how the structural efficiency of platforms allows countries like Rwanda to score high on the EGDI, to the mechanical clarity of Volapük grammar, and the non-negotiable factual basis of a professional demand letter.
The connecting thread is that to manage complexity and chaos, you have to impose relentless structure. Whether it's international trade relying on an open architecture integrator to assume system-wide liability,
right,
or a claimant building a legal case based on verifiable, non-ambiguous facts, the systems that thrive are the ones built on clear, verifiable knowledge.
The Volapük was built with the hope that no mistakes can be made because of its clarity. The modern global supply chain relies on open architecture that requires a single point of responsibility to guarantee performance and prevent failures across these incredibly complex systems. So, a final thought for you. What personal or professional system in your life, maybe it's your budget, maybe it's a difficult project at work, or maybe it's an unsettled disagreement, is currently failing because there isn't one clear, single point of truth or liability responsible for guaranteeing the result? How might adopting the structural clarity of a Volapük grammar or a professional demand